Imagine pointing at a faint smudge in the night sky and realizing this. The light touching your eye left its home before humans had language, before cities, before fire was mastered, before anything like you existed. That smudge is a galaxy, and it is the nearest great galaxy to our own. It looks small, quiet, almost harmless. But that tiny blur is so far away that every word we use for distance begins to fall apart. Miles become meaningless. Kilometers become a joke. Even light years, the biggest measuring stick most of us know, start to feel strangely inadequate. Because the nearest major galaxy to the Milky Way, Andromeda, is about 2.5 million light years away. 2.5 million. That means the light we see tonight began its journey roughly 2.5 million years ago, not 2.5 million minutes. Not days, years. When that light left Andromeda, there were no pyramids, no written words, no countries, no wheels, no music recordings, no telescopes, no one looking up and saying, "What is that?" Our distant ancestors were walking across an Earth that would be almost unrecognizable to us. And all the while, a stream of ancient light was crossing empty space, silently heading toward a future planet where one day someone would look up and wonder. This is the strange problem with space. We can say the numbers, we can write them down, we can put commas in the right places, but understanding them is something else entirely. Let's start small. The moon is far away. If you drove to it in a car at highway speed, without stopping, it would take months. The moon is so distant that astronauts needed days to reach it in a spacecraft moving thousands of miles per hour. But compared to Andromeda, the moon is not far away. The moon is basically next door. The sun is much farther. Light from the sun takes about 8 minutes to reach Earth. That means when you feel sunlight on your skin, you are feeling sunlight that left the sun 8 minutes ago. But even the sun is close, painfully close. It is the lamp in our room. The outer planets are farther still. Light from the sun takes hours to reach Neptune. A spacecraft traveling there needs years. When Voyager 2 passed Neptune, it had been traveling for 12 years, and yet, compared to Andromeda, Neptune is still in our driveway. Then comes the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri. Its light takes more than 4 years to reach us. That is already almost impossible to imagine. If something happened there tonight, we would not know until years from now. If you sent a message at the speed of light and someone answered immediately, you would wait almost 9 years for the reply. That is the closest star system, and Andromeda is more than 500,000 times farther away than Alpha Centauri. This is where the human mind begins to lose its grip. We evolved to understand things we could walk across, throw, chase, build, carry, climb, fear, and eat. Our brains are good at judging the distance to a tree, a river, a storm cloud, another person's face. We are not built to feel 2.5 million light years, so we invent comparisons. If the Milky Way were the size of a dinner plate, Andromeda would still be several meters away. If Earth were shrunk to the size of a grain of sand, the distance to Andromeda would stretch beyond any simple room-sized model. If the solar system were a coin, the galaxy would be a continent, and Andromeda would be another continent across an ocean so wide that the ocean itself becomes the point. But even comparisons fail, because Andromeda is not just far away. It is huge. It contains perhaps 1 trillion stars, not 1 trillion planets, not 1 trillion rocks, 1 trillion suns or something close to it. Many of those stars may have planets. Some may have moons. Some may have oceans. Some may have worlds where sunsets happen under skies we cannot imagine. And yet, from Earth, all of that appears as a faint cloudy patch. One galaxy, a trillion suns, reduced by distance to a blur. That should humble us. Andromeda is visible to the naked eye under dark skies. No telescope required. People have seen it for thousands of years. Ancient astronomers noticed it. It sat in the sky quietly, long before anyone understood what it really was. For a long time, people thought it was a nebula, a cloud inside our own galaxy, a mist, a little patch of cosmic fog. And then, in the 20th century, astronomers realized something shocking. Andromeda was not inside the Milky Way at all. It was another galaxy, another island of stars. That discovery changed the size of the universe in the human imagination almost overnight. The Milky Way was not everything. It was one galaxy among many. The universe was not a single city. It was a landscape filled with cities, scattered across darkness. And Andromeda was one of the closest. That word, closest, is almost funny here. Closest sounds comforting. It sounds reachable, the closest store, the closest friend, the closest exit. But in astronomy, closest can still mean impossible. Andromeda is the nearest large galaxy to the Milky Way, but no human spacecraft could reach it on any timescale that feels human. At the speed of our fastest probes, the journey would take billions of years. Civilizations rise and fall in thousands of years. Species change across millions. Continents drift. Mountains rise and erode. A trip to Andromeda with our current technology is not a trip. It is not even a project. It is a concept that breaks the frame. Even if we could travel at the speed of light, which physics tells us is not possible for anything with mass, it would still take 2.5 million years to get there from Earth's perspective. 2.5 million years at the maximum speed of the universe. These are galaxies too, but they are small compared to Andromeda. Some are more like satellite cities around the Milky Way, while Andromeda is the nearest giant galaxy, the nearest galaxy like ours in scale. And that distinction matters, because when most people hear nearest galaxy, they imagine the nearest great island of stars beyond our own. That is Andromeda, the closest massive neighbor, the one you can actually see with your eyes if the sky is dark enough. And that fact is incredible. You do not need a spacecraft to touch ancient galactic light. You do not need a billion-dollar observatory. You need darkness, patience, and a sky that has not been washed out by city lights. Look toward the constellation Andromeda in the right season, and there it is, a pale oval glow. Not dramatic, not colorful, not like the space photos. Just a faint smudge. But inside that smudge are more stars than you could count in a lifetime. Actually, more than that. Suppose you tried to count every star in Andromeda out loud, one number per second. If Andromeda contains around 1 trillion stars, counting them would take over 30,000 years. 30,000 years just to count the stars in one nearby galaxy. And the observable universe contains perhaps hundreds of billions, maybe trillions, of galaxies. So Andromeda is not only far away, it is a reminder that even the nearest things in the universe can be beyond comprehension, and even the biggest things we can imagine may be ordinary on a larger scale. That is what space does. It keeps expanding the frame. First, Earth seems large. Then Earth becomes a planet. Then the Sun becomes a star. Then the Milky Way becomes a galaxy. Then Andromeda becomes a neighbor. Then the local group becomes a small cluster of galaxies. Then clusters gather into superclusters. Then the observable universe appears as a web of galaxies, filaments, voids, and light. At every step, the word large has to be rebuilt. And at every step, we become smaller, but not less meaningful. That is important. The vastness of Andromeda can make human life feel tiny. And physically, yes, we are tiny. A person is almost nothing compared to a planet. And a planet is almost nothing compared to a star. And a star is almost nothing compared to a galaxy. But meaning does not work like mass. A thought can hold a galaxy. A human mind, small enough to fit inside a skull, can imagine Andromeda. It can measure its distance. It can study its stars. It can ask where it came from, where it is going. It probably will not. It may look like almost nothing, but that is the point. That little blur is 1 trillion suns. That little blur is millions of years away. That little blur is the nearest great galaxy to ours. And somehow, impossibly, its ancient light can still reach your eyes. If this made you see the night sky a little differently, leave a like, subscribe for more journeys through space and time, and tell me in the comments what cosmic distance breaks your imagination the most. Because the universe is far larger than our words, but together we can keep trying to describe it.